I just took a bite out of my favorite fruit pizza. If you haven't had one, you're in for a treat because it's a big sugar cookie topped with a cream cheese layer and then your favorite fruit. It's the perfect summer treat, but honestly, you might want to make this all year long because it's so good. Let's make it. During the summer, you want to enjoy everything that is in season, but also just fresh flavors, and that's what fruit pizza is all about. So I grew up in the Midwest, which means fruit pizza was a staple at church potlucks, at family get-togethers, and it's really simple. Now, at its core, some people will make it with purchased sugar cookie dough from a store that you spread out and bake. Yeah, that works. But you can also just make a delicious sugar cookie, make the crust, put everything on top, and it's really simple, and it's a great treat. It's a great dessert. It's a great thing to have just when you're having people over. So what we're gonna start with is that sugar cookie crust. And to do that, we have room temperature butter. And by that, I mean, see how I can press easily into the butter, but it's not so soft that it just is melty. You want it kind of in that in-between stage. Now to this, what I'm gonna do is just add some sugar. So this is really like any other cookie we would make. We're gonna cream, butter, and sugar until it's light and fluffy. Now what this does is it does aerate the butter. It does add air into it. So it's really essential. So I'm gonna start mixing it and then we'll just get going. And you can see you just want it to start coming together and be lighter and fluffy. It gets a little lighter in color, I should say. So now we just wanna add an egg. Obviously, this is going to help bind it, gonna give it a little bit of lift, which is essential, and then some flavor. So one is, of course, vanilla. Yes, I measure it with my heart. I make my own vanilla. You can check my website, wyseguide.com, and get my recipe. It's not really a recipe, it's just a process for making vanilla. And then a little bit of almond extract. Now this can go way too far, right? But a little bit I find in anything that's a sugar cookie, kind of like a white wedding cake, it adds a little oomph that is just delicious. And we just want to mix that in until it's somewhat incorporated. Now, you should always know at this stage, it's not odd for it to look a little curdled. That's okay. Don't get scared if after you add an egg, it looks a little curdled. That's normal. So for our dry ingredients, it's really simple, right? Some flour. Now I always will over scoop my flour because this is gonna make sure you don't put too much flour in. If you just jam that measuring cup down in there, you can actually get way too much in there. So the flour is going to bring this together and make it the crust we need. We need it to be sturdy enough that it holds up to this cream cheese topping. Did I mention cream cheese topping? It's having cream cheese go on top, which is delicious with the fruit. So you need it to be sturdy enough to hold up to that. So we're gonna add a little bit of baking powder. Again, just a little bit of leavener to bring it together. And then of course, we need some salt to make sure it's gonna bring all the flavor out. And just like that, it comes together very quickly and simply. Now, it's a beautiful, to me, kind of sugar cookie dough, and it is somewhat sticky. But you can see that butter in it makes it so it's kind of easy to work with, I think. So what I have is a pizza pan, because we're calling this a pizza. Now I did roughly cut a piece of parchment to fit in the bottom. I also know the width of my pan to that parchment is the size I want to go. Now this is the part that takes maybe a little bit of time, but honestly it's not that hard. So we're gonna put this right on here and just start, you can either start patting it out, see how I'm doing it. If you need to, you could put a little bit of flour on your hands. I don't usually find I need to with the butter. You could even use an offset spatula and start spreading that out. I personally like to pat it out because it works well and you kind of, to me, have a better shape. Now at the end, if you want to even it up, you could use a rolling pin just to make sure it's even, but I'm just going to spread it out to my size I want and then I'll show you. You can see what a forgiving dough. I use no flour, nothing, and it just nicely spreads out. Now I did this all by hand. And in the oven, the heat will even it out a little bit. Like I'm not too worried about it being absolutely perfect because the heat will do that. I do use a ruler. I did this before so I knew how long or how big I wanted it. And it just so happened that pretty much the inside rim of this pizza pan was exactly the size. So you could do this freeform too on a cookie sheet if you needed to. It's a pretty easy one to do. So now we just bake it until it's fully baked, then let it cool before we put everything together. The cream cheese, the fruit, it's gonna be good. You can see the crust gets nice and golden in the oven. Now, this I let fully cool because you don't want to put anything on top of it when it's warm, but this is why I love this crust. Look, it has a beautiful, crisp, beautiful brown, and yet it's still soft. Like it still is a nice cookie. So that's exactly what you want. So now that it's fully cool, we can move on and make the cream cheese topping. This is, I don't know who comes up with these recipes, but I love them. And they're super nostalgic and you can make it all homemade. So we're gonna start with room temperature cream cheese. So that way it will mix easily and spread easily. Then we have powdered sugar. So cream cheese has that nice kind of like tanginess, but you want to balance that with some sweetness, and the powdered sugar is just going to melt into it. So we're going to add the powdered sugar right on top. We're gonna add, of course, a hit of vanilla. So however much you enjoy, but I do have an amount in my recipe, don't worry. And then just a little pinch of salt again. And now just mix it up until it's smooth. And it really takes no time. And that's pretty much ready to go. So I didn't really think about it like this, but really this is just a frosting, like a cream cheese frosting. So if you wanted to, you could just make a big sugar cookie and frost it with cream cheese, which is really what we're doing. So we're gonna make sure to get all this out and look at that lusciousness. So this is in place of a pizza sauce, if you wanna think of it as, but this is also a way for all the fruit we're gonna add to adhere. Kind of like a glue, but a glue that tastes really, really good. And you wanna get all that bowl out. Every time I do this, I just think of my mom, and she would be watching that bowl, or my grandma, and say, no, that's not good enough. So I'm gonna even get it off of here. And then you just wanna spread it out into an even layer. Now, I'm not worried, this is not a traditional pizza. I'm not worried about seeing the crust really, so just spread it out however works best. When it's spread out, really now, it's your game to do whatever you want. So whatever fruit, you could go totally tropical and you could do mangoes or papaya, the kiwi. I have in front of me more things that are just easier to find or usually taste good. So we have raspberries or blackberries or blueberries. I have strawberries that I've pared and then I'm just cutting in half. And I think I'm gonna start with a ring of strawberries around the edge. You can see I leave just a little bit, but as you put a piece of fruit on, you kind of wanna mash it in a little bit. So I think I'm gonna shingle these slightly and then just make a whole ring of them and then kind of just see where my creativity takes me. That's the fun of it. And we're gonna just assemble a pizza now, however your heart desires. We're finishing this with one blueberry in the center. I think it's kind of the fun part. It's being a little bit creative, doing what you want. Now, like a French tart would have, I like to put a little bit of a glaze on it. You don't have to. That's not what I grew up with. But I think it's kind of nice because it finishes it off, adds a little bit of a glisten. I'm just using some homemade strawberry jam. Jam does have obviously some little piece of fruit. So if you want it completely smooth and clear, you would use a jelly. But I just heat up my jam so it's a little warm. And then I add a little bit of lemon. One, it brightens it even more and kind of has that nice pop that brings out the flavor of the fruit, I think, really well. But it also makes it just a little easier to become kind of a glaze. So I'm mixing it together and you can see it's a pretty now soft consistency. And I take it with a brush and just brush it on the fruit. Now again, this is not necessarily needed. It's just, you know, one of those things, watch what happens. Look at that glisten. Do you see that? That's what you want, that beautiful glisten. You can see how that glaze just adds a nice little sheen to it. It's just nice. And actually, since this is a strawberry, I put it on the strawberries and raspberries and it will just bring out more flavor of that. So you can put this in the fridge for 1 to 2 hours. You don't want to do it too long, but that can solidify that cream cheese back up, obviously. But then you just want to go in, and this is the part that I'm not going to say it's fun to do on camera, but you want to cut it. And I want to do that because I want a nice slice out of it. Kind of like a pizza. It's not going to be perfect, but there. And we'll see if I can get a perfect, we'll kind of get that piece of, oh, that right there. I'll go in between the raspberries maybe and go right there. Oh, this could just work perfectly. That's, oh, there it is. Is that not beautiful? And see how simple of cookie crust that is? That's what I love about it. You can see it holds up structure-wise to what's on top of it. Now you could serve this also in squares if you wanted to, but look at that. The beautiful sugar cookie. It's nostalgic first. Do I have it on my mouth? I probably do. It's nostalgic first, but then you're like, wait, this is better than I remember. The cookie is delicious. You don't notice that almond flavoring, but it brings out so much perfect sugar cookie flavor. That topping of the cream cheese, frosting-like, but we're gonna call it just cream cheese topping. It just brings it all together. It has the tang, it has the sweetness, the fruit on top, drives it home. This is summer. This is perfect for any type of summer event. Maybe just a Monday night because you need to enjoy it. Or if you're having a cookout, if you're having a Memorial Day, a Labor Day, a 4th of July, obviously you can make this into a flag. Anything you wanna do, this is gonna be perfect for summer and it's something to enjoy. So share this video around so other people can see that, guess what? You can make good, delicious food at home. Maybe nostalgic for some, maybe new for others. That's the best part. Check my website, wyseguide.com, for this full recipe and every other recipe you need to enjoy with it.